Greetings, my name is Chamomile and this is an exploration of the entire galaxy sector by sector. Today we're looking at Ojoster Sector and the 10th Crimson Claw Command of the Trans-Hydean region of the Outer Rim. Palazides was a resort world run by Tagco, in which starships weren't even allowed to enter the system without an invitation, so dedicated are they to privacy. This naturally means that wealthy criminals like to set up shop here, like Ort Hugr De'en, an anti-imperial terrorist who bombed a prep school for imperial teenagers who plan to join the imperial military upon graduation, usually children of currently serving imperial officers. Imperial Subcommander Braj Tal hunted Hugr De'en down on Palazides and strafed his base to pieces with TIE fighters. Didn't have any bombers, and he was there with a Carrot-class gunship left over from the Clone Wars, so you can really tell this was an Imperial officer seeking revenge for his murdered son, grabbing whatever resources he had command over, and just unilaterally hunting down the culprit. The Empire being what it is, no one really cared as long as he didn't step on any toes of higher-ranking people while he did it. Palazides later joined the Crimson Empire, a short-lived Imperial remnant led by one of the Emperor's former royal guards. Backstabbing tore the Crimson Empire apart almost immediately, but Han Solo had to dig out holdouts on Palazides with a solo fleet, the portion of the New Republic fleet under his command for a few years following Jakku. The New Republic began demilitarization almost immediately after they were officially declared on Coruscant, but decommissioning fleets takes time, and leaders like Lando Calrissian, Admiral Akbar, and Han Solo put the ships to use in the meantime. The Solo fleet is mostly known as the nemesis of Zinj over an 11th Blazing Claw Command. This Palazides thing was just a side quest. The Crimson Empire mostly destroyed itself. Ojoster Sector is also home to the planet Wayland, its mountain Mount Tantus, and the Imperial Tantus base built into it. Wayland fell off the official record supposedly due to some kind of accounting error, and was rediscovered by the CIS, who used it as a hidden mad science lab. That never really went anywhere, and when the Imperials dug them out, they repurposed the lab into a base for Project Necromancer, along with other experiments like the Clone Assassin program and whatever they were doing with the Zillo Beast clones. Supposedly, Wayland is home to two native species, the Miniirish and the Poseidons. These two don't get along, and the Imperials subjugated them both to prevent them from interfering with their operations in Tantus Space. Tantus Space was the primary hub for Imperial genetic research until it got wrecked by Havoc Squad, formerly called Clone Force 99, and the Empire shuttered the base and redirected research from Mad Genetics to their other projects, especially the Death Star. Okiab 6 was a minor agri-world conquered by the Mandalorians during the Mandalorian Wars of the Old Republic era, although they can't have left too many troops there because the story goes that the locals overthrew the local garrison without any reinforcements from the Republic. Surja, another agri-world — there's a lot of agri-worlds in Ojoster Sector in order to feed the Ecumenopolis of Terrace, which we're getting to. Surja was the site of 4 different early battles between the Mandalorian Neo-Crusaders and Republic forces. The Mandalorians eventually won out, and must have garrisoned this place more effectively because they held onto it until the end of the war. Jebel was an ice mining world that keeps the nearby Ecumenopolis of Terrace supplied with water. Jebel is technically habitable, it has breathable air, land you can stand on, and it does have plenty of water that you can melt for hydroponics. It had a population of millions back when it was part of the Jebel Vanquo Terranith line of defenses guarding Republic territory in and around Terrace from the Mandalorian Neo-Crusaders. The Mandalorians feinted at Vanquo, launched an attack directly at Terrace, and cleaned up Jebel with minimal resistance in the aftermath, Republic forces having already been diverted to and destroyed at Vanquo and Terrace. Jebel became the headquarters for Mandalorian mad scientist Pulsifer, and was supposed to be a staging area for further Mandalorian assaults throughout the Republic mid-rim, aimed at penetrating all the way to Alderaan, but then Pulsifer scrounged up a Sith artifact called the Moor Talisman and started poking at it to find out what it does, and it turns out that what it does is unleash the Rakghoul Plague. The Mandalorians were completely ripped apart from the inside, and although Pulsifer was temporarily able to assert control over the Rakghoul hordes using the power of the talisman, it abandoned him for Jedi infiltrators who were stronger in the Force. The talisman tried to corrupt the Jedi but failed, and ultimately they escaped and the Mandalorians fusion-bombed the planet, melting the ice into a radioactive sea and drowning all the Rakghouls not killed by the bombardment. Planet Denova was briefly important during the Great Galactic Wars of the Old Republic era, when baradium was discovered there, leading to the Republic fighting for control of it with the Sith Empire. Stretched across multiple fronts, the Republic hired Trandoshan mercenaries to hold the planet, but the Trandoshans abandoned the Republic to form an alliance with renegade soldiers from the Sith Empire. The Eternal Empire, an empire from the unknown regions ruled by a Sith offshoot, but whose Sith affiliation was secret, later attacked the planet, leading to the mercenary forces there quietly redeclaring allegiance to the Republic to receive reinforcements to hold the planet against the Eternal Empire. However, because the Sith nature of the Eternal Empire's ruling family was secret, when they were overthrown from within and the faction was reformed into the Eternal Alliance, the rebels had no Sith influence and the Republic briefly considered them allies. Republic forces on Denova defected to the Eternal Alliance, and because the Republic had a truce with the Alliance, hoping to court them as allies against the Sith Empire in the brewing Third Great Galactic War, the Republic's central government on Coruscant did not respond to the defection. However, civilian control over the Republic military was fraying, and a Republic admiral went rogue and attacked the Republic-turned Alliance forces on Denova. The Eternal Alliance won the ensuing battle, but tensions rose between the Republic and the Alliance as it became clear that there were significant anti-Alliance factions in the Republic military, and the Republic was not really capable of keeping them from going rogue with entire divisions. And, of course, I've been building up this whole time to Terrace, the Coruscant of the Outer Rim. Or, at least, it was. Also, it's not the only Outer Rim ecumenopolis to claim that title. De Severo also calls themselves the Coruscant of the Outer Rim. Terrace is the most famous Coruscant of the Outer Rim, though, settled near the end of the early Republic era and rapidly growing into an ecumenopolis because of its location at the crossroads of the Hydean Way and the Mandalorian Road, making it the trade nexus of the entire Outer Rim for most of the 4th millennium of the Coruscant Reckoning. The final century of that millennium is when things came unraveled, as trade routes shifted away from the Trans-Hydean and into the new territories. Terrace was still a major trade hub, but not the kind of place that could properly sustain 1 trillion inhabitants. Pollution had devastated the ecosystem of the planet, decreasing the food output of the oceans, the only part of the planet not covered in city, at the same time as declining trade made the planet poorer and thus less able to import food from the agri-worlds that had been colonized throughout Ojoster Sector to feed them back in the Golden Age. Resource scarcity led to uprisings against the aristocracy hoarding food on the upper levels, which led to decades of sustained civil war. The Rakghoul plague broke out in the lower levels and sewer systems somehow, and Gamorrean slavers descended on the world to take advantage of a population of hundreds of billions in chaos, in which the kidnapping operations could frequently operate in broad daylight without drawing any retaliation. The upper and middle cities remained mostly stable, but the lower city absorbed the resource shortage brought about by the decline of a planet totally incapable of supporting its own population. The lucky ones escaped Terrace to other planets. The unlucky ones were killed by famine or plague, kidnapped by Gamorrean slavers, or died in the riots and gang wars. In the Mandalorian Wars, the attack on Terrace came after a diversionary strike on Vanquo left the planet underdefended, so the Mandalorians caused relatively little damage while conquering Terrace. The Republic reconquest came after Malachor V, when then Jedi Revan had defeated Mandalore the Ultimate, scattering the Neo-Crusaders. Quite a few of the remnants dug into Terrace, but they were disorganized, had poor morale, and were surrounded by a massive population that hated them. The lower city was a no-go zone for the Mandalorians because the locals down there were all combat veterans of 100 gang wars and knew the labyrinthine terrain far better. And even after decades of depopulation, there were still billions of people down there. The higher levels were Republic loyalists, eager to feed the Navy and revanchist Jedi information on where the Mandalorians were hiding. Terrace was then hit by one of Darth Revan's early surprise attacks from their new capital at Korriban, captured before the Republic had properly remilitarized from the end of the Mandalorian Wars. Despite having changed hands 3 times as a major flashpoint of 2 different wars, Terrace was nearly unscathed by the conflicts, which was good since it had been so ravaged by other calamities that it didn't have a whole lot of fight left in it. And then Darth Malak orbitally bombarded the planet because he'd got word that Jedi Master Bastila and his wayward master Darth Revan were down there, and he quite liked being Sith Emperor and did not want to yield the throne back to Revan. Both Revan and Bastila escaped because, as has always been true, you can't actually kill a planet with orbital bombardment. You can kill most of a planet, though, and Terrace's population never fully recovered from the devastation. Skyscrapers being what they are, no one from the upper or middle city survived, and strictly speaking, even the people of the lower city were hundreds, sometimes even thousands of feet above the surface. The lowest levels of the city were pure infrastructure and weren't supposed to have any inhabitants, but they did, and only some of them were Rakghouls. Terrace was rebuilt from this population of under-city survivors, but by the time of the Galactic Civil War, it was said to have a population of only 1 billion. That barely qualifies them as a major world. If their ecosystem hadn't been ruined, they wouldn't even need to import food.